Okay, Rav Chav Tes Amid Aleph. This is, if not the most famous Gemara in Shas among them. This we all learn as kids. It's a very, very well-known Gemara. For a few blot, it's very geschmack. So, Kol mitzvahs haben ala av. Now, if you translate it literally, all mitzvahs that a son has to do to a father. Kol mitzvahs haben ala av. All the mitzvahs that a son has on the father. Anoshim chayavim v'noshim peturos. Men are chayav and women are pater. Which doesn't make a lot of sense. Again, which does not make a lot of sense. Because as we're going to see, we know that women also mechuyev and kibbud over aim. So therefore, we'll have to go ahead and rework the first line. Rav Chav Tes Amid Aleph. We just began the Mishnah. Welcome back, David Navav. Okay, so the chol mitzvahs ha'av ala ben, and all mitzvahs that a father has to do to a son. Echad nashim ve'echad nashim chayavim. So, sign man and sign woman apata. Okay, we'll see what that means in the Gemara. Two clauses, and we'll see what that means in the Gemara. B'chol mitzvahs essay shazman grama. All mitzvahs essay that are contingent upon time. Anoshim chayavim v'noshim peturos. Men are chayav and women are pater. So, b'chol mitzvahs essay shaloi hazman grama, and any mitzvahs that's not contingent upon time. Mezuzah, Micah, tzedakah. Echad anoshim ve'echad anoshim chayavim. B'chol mitzvahs lo yisaseh, ben shazman grama, ben shlo yazman grama. Echad anoshim ve'echad anoshim chayav nuchayv all mitzvahs lo yisaseh, except three. Chutz bal takif, a woman is able to go ahead and cut off her payas, being rounding off the head. Ubal tashchis, a woman is not mitzvah in using a razor on her face, right? Ubal tetamal lemesim, and a woman, if she's a kohen, a bas kohen, she's not mechuyev in tamei. So let's go through outside, guys. Okay, so a general statement that's ambiguous: mitzvahs ben alav ala ben, mitzvahs aseh shazman grama, mitzvahs aseh shelo yazman grama, lo saseh, and three particular lo saseh. So therefore, tonight we're going to be focusing on the first part of the daf, and we'll see Be'ez Hashem a few interesting taisus in. Just from the Mishnah, very interesting, fellas. Look at the last bit in the Mishnah: ubal titame de kahanim. Now the Rishash asked a very good question. If I would say to you Tumah, so we know there's the Tumah by Nazir, we know there's Tumah by what? By Tumah by a Kahanim. We also know by the Regel. There's a mitzvah to go ahead and on the Regel that you should be Tahar on the Regel. When it comes to the Regel, you should be, every person has to be Tahar. So why did Rashi explain it with Kahanim? How did he know he's speaking about that Tumah versus Tumah Regel? So he answers beautifully. What does the Mishnah say? It says, the Tamei Lemesim. By the Regel, you'd have to also be careful about Tumas Nevelo. All Tumah you'd have to go ahead and be careful about. When it said Tumas Mesim, so Mesim is Dafka Kahanim. Okay, very good. Now, listen, what's the lashon of the Mishnah? My kol mitzvahs haben ala av. What does it mean, all the mitzvahs of a ben on an av? So literally taken, the mitzvahs that a son has to do to a father. Ilay kol mitzvahs nemechayev bara lemevid la'aba. If you mean every mitzvah that a son is mechuyev to do to a father, nashim peturos, nashim will be part of. For example, we're all mechuyev in kibbud of aim, we're all mechuyev in yira of aim. So taken literally, you tell me women are pata. Incredulously, the Gemara asks about Tanya. That's not possible. It says ish imoy ve'aviv tirau ve'shab soisay tishmaru. Tirau, it's a lashon rabim, fellas. So obviously, who are you speaking to? Ish, ain't the other ish, ishaminayin. So obviously, when the Mishnah says all mitzvahs that a son has to do to a father, women are pata from, it can't mean the son to the father. But no, that mitzvahs that a son to the father, women are also mechuyevin, such as kibbud of aim or yiris of aim. So that can't possibly be the pshat. So Amrav Yehuda Hachikama. It's not like you thought; it's the opposite. Amrav Yehuda Hachikama. Here's the way you read. Kol mitzvahs haben hamuteles ala av la'asleis lebinoi. It's not speaking about the mitzvahs that a son does to a father. It's the opposite. It's the mitzvahs that a father is placed, the chiyuvim that's placed on a father that's placed to do to a son. Then anoshim chayavim v'noshim peturos. The men will be chayiv and women will be pata. So the woman would be pata from the, as we're going to see. Bryce will have elaborate upon it. We had Tanina Lo the Tanarabanon. This statement, this brisa is in conjunction to another brisa. the Tan Rabbanon, Ha'av Chayiv Bibino, and now we're going to mention a few things, and we're going to then the Gemara is going to go ahead and explain every one of these things. Ha'av Chayiv Lemoiloi Binoy Lemoiloi to mal him, Lifdoisai to redeem him, Ulam Be Torah to teach him Torah, Ulasiya Isha and to marry him, Ulalam Be Umnis and to teach him a trade, even to teach him to swim. Anyone who doesn't teach his son a trade, Malamim Listois is teaching him to be a robber. Fred Gemara, Listois Al Kedaita, you teach him to be a robber. Elakilu Malamdai Listois is if you teach him robbery. So let's go outside and reiterate what we just said. All mitzvahs, when it says all mitzvahs, Haben ala Av, means all mitzvahs on the father should do to his son. The mitzvahs that a father has to do to his son, the mitzvahs that a father has to do to his son, men are chayiv and women are pater. For example, lemoiloi, to mal him, women are not mechuyev to mal their child. Liftaisai, women are not mechuyev to be paid to the child. Olam de Torah, the women are not mechuyev to teach the child Torah. Leumnis, women are not mechuyev to teach the child a trade. And after swim to save their lives, women are not pater. And we're going to learn a limba for each one of these things, right? Each one of these things. By the way, you might ask, what's this doing in this Masechta? If you go through the Masechta, correct? We went through Kidushin. We then went ahead and went to Avodim. We went to the Sugyawat of slaves, right? And we said, how do you acquire slaves? Then we went, how do you acquire animals? Then we went, how do you acquire property? And now we're going ahead and totally different thing. And the answer is really we're really going back. This is based upon the Ritva. The Ritva says one of the things you're mechuyev to do is marry off your son. So Masechta Kidushin is discussing to Kidushin. That's the connection. But guess what? As soon as we got to that, now we're going to digress and discuss Mila. For a second we got back on track, and now we're going to go ahead and digress and discuss Mila and Pidyon Aban. Again, this is from the most famous sugis. There's not one person sitting here who wasn't in a camp where they did this. Yarchei Kala does this. They always do this Gemara. This is one of those famous Gemaras. Right? No, I didn't say you know it. I mean, I didn't know it either until I learned it a few times. But again, so now some of the things men is mechuyev to. The first one is Mila. Lemoiloi minolan. How do you know a father has to mal a child? Lemoiloi minolan. Dichsiv vayamal Avram Yitzchak beno, and Avram went ahead and he maled Yitzchak his son. Avram maled Yitzchak his son. This is in Parshas. This is Parshas Vayera, right? Avram was given the tzivui in Parshas what? In Parshas Lech Lecha, and then when Yitzchak is born, so Yishmael gets the bris milah at 13, and the first person in the history of the world who had a milah at 8 days was Yitzchak Avinu. The heichad leimali avua mechayev beidin l'mimalei, and where he doesn't go ahead and do it, how do you know Bezdin or really all of Klal Yisrael is mechuyev? Yechsiv, it says himo lachem kol zachar. It says himo lachem, be mal for you. Kol zachar lachem is lashon mad of everyone. Himo lachem, all of you. When Bezdin doesn't do it, he himself has to mal. An oral zacha that does not mal himself, his orla, he will not get kares. As a matter of fact, there's 2 mitzvahs essay in the Torah that you chayiv kares for. Usually mitzvahs essay is in a kfiyah. Bezdin will force you until they kill you. Bezdin will force you to go ahead and do it. But there's 2 mitzvahs two mitzvahs that Bezdin will go ahead and that not Bezdin, that the din of kares is Mila and Korban Pesach. If a person fails to mal himself, he's chayiv kares, and I think there's machlokes is he at the end of his life he's chayiv, or each and every day he's chayiv from the time he's able to. It's machlokes if I remember. And ihi minolan deloy mechayva. How do you know she's not mechuyev? Again, what's the statements of the Mishnah? All mitzvahs that a father has to do to a son, men are chayiv and women are pater. So we established that the father is mechuyev from the fact that Avram mal Yitzchak. We established that that every person in Klal Yisrael has a chiyuv to make sure every person is gemalit. He established himself from Olasai, a person has a chiyuv. Ihi minolan deloy mechayva. Dichsiv kav shetziva oisai elokim, like Hashem commanded him. Oisai v'lo Oisa. Oisai, dafke him and not her. Right? What? Tzipor mal Moshe, but because Moshe wasn't there. Moshe wasn't there. In other words, it wasn't mitar schiyah. It wasn't mitar schiyah. In other words, the question is, can she do a milah if the husband's not around? So it's not a mitzvah. She did the milah, but it wasn't a mitzvah. Ashkin miyad. Good. We find this, guys. Every pasuk here was by who? Avram Avinu. So we find by Avram Avinu, right? L'doires minala. And how do you know for future generations? Anytime it says lashon of tzav, einoi ella zaris, that means to be mizaris you miyad ulidoris. Zero is the chsiv tzaves Yeshua v'chaskev v'amseyu. To mizaris says command Yeshua and strengthen him and fortify him. Miyad ulidoris the chsiv min hayom ashet tziva Hashem v'halol lidoris sechem. So it says kashet tziva oso elakim, that Avram Avinu was mal Yitzchak like Hashem commanded him to. It's the lashon of tzav, and here we see that what min hayoma asher tziva Hashem v'hala. So once it says lashon of tzav, it means miyad ulidoris. Okay, so that's the source for milah. Now, just as this is one of the most famous gemaras, this is one of the most famous taisvus in Shas, guys. I mean, this taisvus, even I knew. Vim taimar lama likra. Typically, the mitzvahs essay shazman gramahu. Why? Shenimal b'shmini leidasai v'nashim peturais. Fred Tais is a bomb kasha. You needed a biblical source to tell me that woman apata kasha tziva oisai v'loy oisa, him and not her. But 1 second, isn't Mila mitzvahs essay shazman grama that's caused by day 8 coming? Fellas, isn't Mila day 8 comes? So before that, you can't do Mila. So it's caused by time. It's contingent upon time. And therefore, since it's contingent upon time, then she should be pata. So why do I need a limud? The same source that will tell me a woman is pata for mitzvahs eshes on grama will tell me that's pata for Mila. The kivin the miyom hashmini b'hala einlei hefsek. Since from the day 8 and onwards, 9, 10, 11, there is no hefsek whatsoever. Lavzman gramahu. It's not considered a zman grama. It's not considered a zman grama. Meaning it's not even considered zman grama even day 8. It's not even day 8. Okay. From time of rakati mitzvah zman gramahu dein molin ela b'yoyim kidisa beperek karol. So the day you do it every single day. Yeshleim the asi command yom hasam. The Mila Shleib is man on Heges being beyond Ben Belayla. That it's not like day and night, so that wouldn't be a problem. You want Mila Shabbos? Yeah, once Mila is done on Shabbos, so it's not Shabbos not Lavzman Milahu. Yom Kippur. Once you can do it, it's not considered Lavzman Milah. Now, the Hagudara of Mitzvah Seshes Mangrama is twofold. Tkiyah Shaif is a Mitzvah Seshes Mangrama. Sukkah is Mitzvah Seshes Mangrama. Why? Because the whole year it doesn't exist. The whole year it doesn't exist. Comes Rosh Hashanah, we blow a shofar. Aleph Tishrei, we're blowing a shofar. Tesvav Tishrei, we're sitting in a sukkah. The whole rest of the year not. That's one mitzvah shesman grama. That there is no mitzvah. There's another mitzvah shesman grama. That is, it doesn't depend upon. It's not mugval by a date, but it's mugval by time. So, for example, Tzitzis is a mitzvah shesman grama because it's Laila Avzmat Tzitzisu. Those are so Tosis really addressed both of them. The first one he addressed that what it's only on day 8, which would be similar to a certain date, which would be a certain date, right? And the second one, however, it's not that, it's day and night. Also, you see the second gather of mitzvah shesman gramahu. Okay. Now there are many drachim to answer Taisus Kasha. One pasha derech in the Ritva is Oisa v'lo Oisa. Mitzvah shesman grama would only pataha, right? For only pataha, that she would not be mechayev. But how do you know that there's a din not to do to another? In other words, she obviously physically she has no chiyuv. But how do you know? How would you? No, it's the Patur mitzvah shesman grama would say it's a Patur in yourself. So she is pata from a sukkah, right? But how do you know mitzvah shesman grama would say you can't build a sukkah? In other words, that you can't do it. That's what's accomplished as the Ritva by Oisav Le'asah, that even though there's no chiyah for you, there's no mitzvah to do it either. You potter from it, you yourself. The Patur is what the women are potter. But how do you know the woman would not have a chiyuv to do to somebody else? So no, so physically,
mitzvah wasn't for Yitzchak to get a milah. The mitzvah was
we see that it's not true. We see that the mitzvah, we see there's three gedarim in the mitzvah: the father on the son, Klal Yisrael, and the person to be gemalah, right? And person to be gemalah. So, what's the kaisis kasha? Don't tell me a pasuk. Don't tell me a pasuk. You don't tell me a pasuk, so I'd say that, well, don't tell me a pasuk. If it's She's Mangrama, she's out of the whole picture. And the answer the Ritva wants to say is that, well, I don't know if she'd be out of the whole picture. Maybe her herself there's no chiyuv, even though it doesn't work by Mila by her. But to go ahead and do it to somebody else, I would say not. So I need a pasuk to do it to somebody else. He just learned that the chiyuv for the father, that's one chiyuv, Avi, but there's two other chiyuvim. There's a whole chiyuv over here. There's a lechem and there's yourself. The teretz that really spoke to me, fellas, this really spoke to me, is it's brought down by the Rashash brings it down, and Siman Nam and then Gimel, Shash brings it down over here, and Siman Nam and Gimel in the Shagas Aryeh. This is by Mitzvah Torah. The Shagas Aryeh says Gavaldik. It says like this: is there any day in the world that there's no chiyah for sukkah? Most of the year. Is every day, most of the year, right? Rosh Hashanah, most of the year. Is there any time a day that there's no one doing a milah? No. You don't have a chiyuv till day 8, but the mitzvah of milah is in the Welt. It's going in the world all the time. Every single day, someone's doing a milah. So you want to say it's a mitzvah Zeshes Man Grama? No, you don't have a chiyuv to do it until day 8, but the mitzvah is there. The haraya. Every day in Klal Yisrael for thousands of years, I'm sure every single day there's been a bris milah. So it's different than sukkah. What? It's at nighttime. That's the second.
Somewhere in the world.
No, but the chiyuv is the day. You know, it's yoim yoim.
But it's always day.
No, your day. When your day is there, it's not there, right? And no, to every single person, it's that day. But it's always there. It's ongoing all the time. That's the way the Shagas Aryeh and the Rashash learn answer Taisus Kash. Again, this Taisus is very, very well known, and I would be an avla to go fast just because I'm in a rush. We'll give it everything. Okay, very geschmack. Okay, says more liftaisai. We said look. Finish with Lemailai. Right. We said Lemailai. So we know we run this. Let lift daisai. So he prayed to him. How do you know father is a chiyuv if he prayed his son? Dichsiv kol b'char b'necha tifta. All b'char of your sons tifta, you should go ahead and redeem. The hechad leparki avua mechayiv iu leparki. Mashma Bezdin doesn't have a chiyuv, fellas, right? Because it skips. But he had by Mila, we said first Bezdin, him first the father, then Bezdin, and then himself, right? So what do we have over here? We skip that second step. We skip Bezdin. But I don't know, it's not so pashut. Double lashon. There's that pod that it should be done. If your father doesn't do it, you have a chiyuv to pay to yourself. And how do we know that she is not in the ballpark of being paida? Tifde tipade. Tifde means you should redeem. That's the Kri. And tipade means you shall cause somebody else to be redeemed. In other words, you shall become redeemed. So therefore, the person who has a chiyuv to become redeemed can go ahead and redeem others. Kol shemitzav liftay says atzmai, of course it says tipadeh. Mitzvah liftay says acherim, because it says sipadeh. The sifte. Kol she'enim mitzvah liftay says atzmai, like a woman. Enim mitzvah liftay says acherim. So since a woman is not in the ballpark of redeeming herself, she's not in the ballpark of redeeming others. How do you know herself is not mechuyev to go ahead and redeem herself? Let's go the other way around. Anyone that others are commanded to redeem, mitzvah liftai says atzma is a mitzvah to redeem themselves. Right? You could have learned it out from the pasuk kol b'char b'necha tifta, right? So you look at the bottom Taisus. In other words, why do you need a limud that she's not mechuyet to pay? It says kol benecha tifte. Bottom Taisus. In time, typically mishum dechsiv kol benecha tifte. The masho benecha v'lei benesecha. So it's a mefurish pasuk. It says in Beishlem the salkadai that kol benecha av chayiv liftais v'lei nekeva. Av in the keva tifte atzmai. In other words, kol benecha tifte means a father has a chiyuv. What happens if the father doesn't do for his son? Doesn't but not a daughter. Well, what about the daughter herself? In other words, kol b'char b'necha tifta would only tell me a father has a chiyuv to pay their son, but he doesn't have a chiyuv to pay their daughter. But it doesn't tell me a daughter doesn't have to be nifta. Maybe a daughter has to do herself, and then we say anyone who is counterintuitive, the other way around. Anyone who is in the ballpark of redeeming others redeems themselves. Interesting shaila. Who liftais ubenoi liftais? Who there's a mitzvah to go ahead and be paid to him. He has enough money for himself, and he has but not enough money for his son. Who kaidem will know? So mitzvah de gufadif. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer benoi kadmai. Rabbi Yehuda says no. That in fact the son comes first. Why? She say mitzvah say alaviv. Say mitzvah benoi alav. So the mitzvah is a mitzvah on himself to take care of himself, and there's a mitzvah to take care of his son. So the mitzvah is, the son can't take care of himself as long as there's a father, right? And therefore, what it says Rabbi Yehuda, he should go ahead and be paid to the son. Says Rashi, who liftais shlei padu aviv? Obviously, his father didn't do it, so his father didn't do it. It becomes the chiyuv on himself. Then there's the chiyuv that he had on his son, right? So the Tanakama says, well, your chiyuv was there first. You take care of that. And Yehuda says, 1 second, the son doesn't have a chiyuv to be paid. I guess if you have a father, you don't have a chiyuv to be paid. The father goes first. So therefore, the chiyuv is upon you. You take care of that chiyuv. Rabbi Yehuda, hakol moedim. Let's go ahead and qualify this machlokes. Hakol moedim, everyone's moedah. Kol heicha deleka ela chamesh sloyim. Anytime you only have 5 sloyim, which is the share of pidyon aben. Kol heicha deleka ela chamesh sloyim. Who kaidem levinoi? Even Rabbi Yehuda will be moedah. He comes first. The chiyuv was there first. You only have 5. Take care of yourself first. My timer mitzvah de gufa adifa. The mitzvah of yourself is adif, is stronger. Ki pligi. When's the machlokes? Heicha deika chamesh mishubadim, the chamesh bnei chayrin, where you have 5 sloyim that are meshubid and 5 sloyim that are bnei chayrin. Okay, so now you are born. Your father wasn't paid to you. You have a chiyuv. You go ahead. You have a field and you sell your field. Is that field meshubit to the kayin? This would depend upon whether, fellas, you're holding milva kesuva b'toira is kikuva b'shtar damya. We met on Daf Yud Gimel Amid Beis. We met the concept of milva kesuva b'toira, where a chiyuv that the Torah puts upon me. Tosfos brought, for example, pidyon aben, karbonis, erchin. He said nezikin, which was a huge chiddush, right? He gave a bunch of places that the Torah puts a chiyuv on a person. So now, I had a chiyuv upon me. I sold the field. If it's milva b'shtar, then the kohen's what? The kohen has a shibud on that field, right? So if you don't hold milva kesuva b'toira, then the kohen has nothing. So now, here's the machlokes. Rabbi Yehuda says that while the chiyuv is on to do your son first, says milva de kesuva b'toira k'kesuva b'shtar damya. Bahani chamesh parak lebrei, right? With the 5 free bnei chayrin that you have, redeem your son. Ba'azal kayin, and let the kayin go. V'tarif lei lechamesh mishubadim lididei, and let him be mishubad the 5 that's his. Because again, when he sold his property, there was a chiyuv on him to be paid himself, and the kayin, since it's milva kesuv b'torah is a shibud, so the kayin has a shibud on that property. Rabbanan Sarva milva the ksuva raisa like ksuva b'shtar damya. Milva that's written in the Torah is not ksuva b'shtar damya. Therefore, there's no shibud on it. So all you guys have is what? You only have 5. You don't have 10. That meshubit doesn't count as anything, and therefore you only have 5. What do you do with that 5? Hilgach mitzvah the guf adif. You go ahead and you spend that 5 on yourself. So that's machlokes. Like Rabbi Yehuda, you have 10. 5 is meshubit for you. 5 for your son, free take. And according to according to Rabbi, according to the Tanakama, there's only 5 because there's no shibud. Okay. Guys, well, if you're lekeach, what happens if he would have used the 5 free for himself? If you, let's say he has 10, 5 is for himself and 5 is meshubid. The shibud is on who? On his property, right? What happens if he would have gone ahead, used the 5 free for himself? Could the kohen collect for the son for mishubadim? The son was born afterwards, fellas. There was no chiyuv. So why can't the lekeach have a taina of you basically messed me up by you going ahead and using that money for yourself? You could have saved the guy ripping the field away from me, going ahead and using the free money on yourself. So Rashi points out that that's the shtickle din of Ainah. Rashi points out that's an injustice what the guy did, but there's no Ainah. It's not something that he can have a time on him. Okay, so what do we have, guys? Let's go over. We have a din of Mila, right? Din Mila v'yom b'shem Avram Avinu. We have Arlaso Yitzchak himself. We have Lachem Bezdin. We have a women not Kashesiva so v'lo yisa. We have again also Pidyon Aben. Pidyon Aben, it says that Kol b'chol b'necha tifta. You should go ahead and then how do you know himself Padei tifta? How do you know Bezdin we didn't bring a source? How do you know she not? Because she's not in the ballpark of being Paidah, she's not in the ballpark of being Paidah's son. Okay, very good. Now, continues the Gemara. Tanrabanan. Liftoy says Spinoy Uvalis L'Regel. There's you have enough money to be Paidah to your son, or to be Oil L'Regel. Which one takes precedence? Right? Paidah Spinoy v'akach Oil L'Regel. First you Paidah your son, and then you go to Regel. I guess I don't know. It seems like you have enough. You can go up there. I don't know what's the concern over here. Yeah. In other words, I guess you have to get money together. And then if he gets it together, he will be oil regel. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda Omer oil regel v'akach paidas b'noi shezu mitzvah veres. The mitzvah regel is going to pass by. V'zu mitzvah shena veres. The pidyon aben. There's no time limit, right? It's day 30. Only at day 30. Is the big mitzvah day 30 or 31? I mean, you do. It's reason makdim la mitzvahs, but it's not like there's no shleibis manoi. It's not like Mila.
Right now.
What? It's like not a veris. You're going to miss it. If I do this, I won't be able to regel. I'll be gone. That'll be gone totally complete, right? The Bishlein Rabbi Yehuda, who says first you go be goyel regel and then you pay the kid garment time. He said shazum is veris. El Rabbanon, like Rabbanon, you only have money. Why are you doing pay the first? My tamayu. The makro it says kol b'chol b'necha tifte. It says kol b'chol b'necha tifte, and afterwards it says v'lo yiro penai reikom. The pasuk says upetach hamor tifte b'sev and leisifte raftoi kol b'chol b'necha tifte v'lo yiro penai reikom. I shouldn't see your face what empty-handed. So therefore, the pecking order is that first you go ahead and you pay the kol b'chol b'necha tifte, and then what do you do afterwards? Then lo yiro penai reikom. Tan Rabbanan. Minayim shem hoyu lo chamesh banim mechamesh nashim. Rabbanan. Minayim shem hoyu lo chamesh banim mechamesh nashim. How do you know if you have five children from 5 different women? Shechayev liftes kulon that you have to pay all of them. Hamalayim it says kol b'char b'necha tifte. Now any b'char tifte means it comes out of each woman. You can have multiple b'chars. Shita, Peterechim, Polrachman. It's taught in the first child that comes out of the mother's womb. So now the time I might think, Nelif Bechor Bechor Nachla, you learn that Bechor by Nachla, Malahal and Reish Soina by Nachla, it's your first child. If you have 2 wives and 2 children, the first one born is your Bechor Nachla. It's the Bechor to the other one, that's the only opinion I've been. So the Gemara, you might think you learn Bechor from there, and therefore only your first one. Afkan Reish Soina, therefore no, you tell me that. So we know Pidyon Aben, we know Mila Pidyon Aben, now Lulamdai Torah. How do you know it's a mitzvah to teach your son Torah? Minolan Dechsiv, Limartem my son es benechem. And you should go ahead and teach your sons, your children. Martem es benechem. Behekadle Agmei Avua, and where the father is not learned, Mechayivi Lemigmar Nafshe, how do you know he himself has to go ahead and learn? Dechsiv, it says, Rashi says, Ulamatem, look at Rashi, guys, the third line gets thin. Kruachrinahu. ulamadatem ma'isam ushmartem la'asaisam. There's a different pasuk. This is not the Var Aleph and Akev. This is in earlier in Perek Hey, probably Eschanan. Says so ulamadatem. It says ulamadatem is that what ulamadatem ma'isam ushmartem la'asaisam, and you should learn it and you should keep it. I know she's not mechayiv to teach her son Torah. It says v'limadet tem ulemadetem. V'limadetem ulemadetem. Ulemadetem is to teach. Ulemadetem is to learn. Kol shem mitzvah lilmoid. Anyone is mechayiv to learn. Mitzvah lalamed is mechayiv to teach. Kol she'enim mitzvah lilmoid, and anyone is not mechayiv to learn. Einem mitzvah lalamed is not mechayiv to teach. V'im minolan lo mechayiv. A woman's not mechayiv to learn Torah. L'melef nafsha d'chsiv. V'limadetem v'limadetem kol shachim. 1 second. The kol she'enim mitzvah. A woman who's not mechayiv to learn is not mechayiv to teach. And now you know she's not mechayiv to teach. D'chsiv v'limadetem v'limadetem kol shachim mitzvah l'lamdoi. Anyone that others are mechayiv to teach, mitzvah l'lamed. Esatzmai. He has to teach themselves. Has to learn themselves. Kol she'ein achim mitzvah l'lamdoi. And anyone who's not mitzvah to teach, ein mitzvah l'lamed. Esatzmai is not mitzvah to learn themselves. How do you know other people can't teach a woman Torah? And this is the source. In other words, you always have these people who come up with this source why women can't learn Torah, why women can't learn Gemara. There's always reasoning, and bottom line is this is the reason. It says and we say Benechem v'loy b'nei seichem. It's Xeris HaKosa. Okay, Ton Rabbanan. Hu l'moid u'b'nei l'moid. He has enough that he can learn and his son can learn. Who kaidel b'nai? He comes before his son. Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion. In b'nai zaris, if his son is a zaris, right? Rashi tells us what does a zaris mean? Uva'av roya sheyatzliach mimenu. And his father sees that he will be more matzliach than him. Bein le'sipuk nechasim sheyilamdu shnayim. He doesn't have enough money, property that they both should learn. Yilmoid b'nai, let his son learn. And he should work to go ahead and provide for his son. Okay, that's again. So if you have in the days where you had enough money for learning, so if his son was benoy zaris umamulach, it's an interesting word. He's very mumulach. He was very bright. The Talmudim eskayim biyadai. They're benoy kaidmai. So the din of learning Torah, we have the concept about of Chayecha Kaidim, right? We have that mitzvah the Gufa Adif, the same thing like Pidyon Aben. But when it comes to Torah, also you. But if the son is particularly a Zariz, then what? You should go ahead and Ki Hadar of Yaakov B'Reider of Acha Yaakov. Very famous story. Rav Yaakov was the son of Acha Yaakov. He was named after his grandfather. Shadra Avu L'Kamei de Abaya. So his father sent him in front of Abaya. His father sent him in front of Abaya, meaning he sent him to learn Torah. He sent him to learn Torah. See, he sent Rav Yaakov to learn Torah. Ki Asa, when Rav Yaakov came home, Chazia Rav Achasur Levamiyachtin Shmaitza. He saw that it wasn't so clear to him. He wasn't clear in his Gemara, in his learning. So Amalei, so Rav Anna said Rav Acha Anna, I atif minach. I'm more adif than you. Tuvat, you stay here. The Asal Anna, and I'll go learn by Abaya. Shama Abaya de Kahavi Asi. Abaya heard that Rav Acha Yaakov was coming, and listen to this. So he acted promptly. Having mazik be rabbanon the Abaya. There was this mazik, this shade that would go ahead, and it would be in the base medrash of Abaya. If he have the Isla betray even two people together, which usually shade and left alone. Afila be yamama during the day when shade didn't bother you, having mitaske, he would go ahead and. So it's unbelievable. So this shade was very dangerous. It was so you didn't have the security of two people, nor the security of daytime. So Amalahu, Abaya told the people when Rav Acha Yaakov was coming, Lo liyasiv le inish ushpiza. No one invite him in. No one invite him in. You know why? Will he sleep? He'll sleep in the shul. Efshad misrachesh nisa, right? Maybe a nest will happen, and he'll go to shul, and he'll take care of business. We're going to see in a second. Ain't some kind of nest. So oil bas. So he went in. He went to sleep. Rav Acha Yaakov went to sleep in the yeshiva. Idmile kitanina the shiva rishvase. The shade appeared to him as a snake with 7 heads, and kolkari dekora. Each time Rav Acha bar Yaakov bowed down in tefillah, not the chadresha, one of the heads fell off. One of the heads fell off. So Amalahu Lamachar. So said Rav Acha to Abai the next day, Ilo Yisrachash Nisha Sakinte. If you didn't go ahead what and had a nest happen to me, you would have put me in sakana. It's very peladik Gemara. How did Abai have shus to place him in sakana like this? So I sent out a marsha. I sent out a marsha. What? Oh, nothing good. Okay, so Efshe Dusrachis Nisha Ktsas Kosha the Heich Docha Abaya Oisei L'Machem Sakana Ala Sofik the Shema Yisrachis Nisha the Gam in Yisrachis Nisha Yehi Minakin Le Mitzchu Yosef Kidama Ba'alma. There's a Perik Gimel, guys, in the Chavis Alvav. It says a very interesting. Each person has a certain day he's supposed to live, a certain is supposed to die, but you're not supposed to go ahead and put yourself in a Makam Sakana. So you can't jump off a roof because two bad things can happen. One, you could die. Or two, you could live. And you know how many schusim you had to use up to live? So nothing could happen. So says the Marsha, how could Abaya go ahead and put Rav Acha bar Yaakov in the situation? Right? He's putting him in the situation. What's the situation? A nest, first of all, how can you samach on a nest that's going to happen? And even if a nest does happen, it's going to take away from the schusim of Rav Acha bar Yaakov. That's his kasha. Yesh Leimar, the Vadai samach Abaya al chasidusai. Gemara, guys, in Samach Gimel in Erevin, he speaks about the chasidus of Yaakov bar Yaakov. In other words, it wasn't a nest. For him to destroy this thing, it wasn't a nest. Right? He was samach on chasidusai. Ushemitoich tfilasai layiyeh nizuk. Right? And because of his tefillah, he wouldn't get damaged. V'yahara yasamazik. Ve'ein ze mikri nes. And that's not called a nest. Ella, Sha'amar, what was Abaye worried about? The Shema koidim tefillah yisrachish nisha. In other words, what was Abaye worried about? That before the nature of his tefillah would kill it, maybe the fact that he was there would kill it. That's what he was worried about. Now that suffix, ein limnoya havadai she'haragosai. In other words, what was the suffix? Whether the masik would die before the tefillah or not, and that would take away from the schusim. But that suffix does not go ahead and take from the vadai that the tefillah would kill it. So therefore, Abaye sent them in. So now, what's the taina that Rav Acha did? He said maybe a nest would happen. Well, the Amalei Lamachar, Ilo Yisrachash Nisa, Shahoyim Misrayim Aleihem, Shlei Tola Hadav Filasai. In other words, why did he say Yisrachah Nisa? He wanted to hide the fact that why his tefillah killed it. And he told the buyer the next day, you know what, if a nest didn't happen, he was covering it up. It was a cover-up because his tefillah would kill it. And that's what he's saying. So that Shahayim Misrayim Aleim Shlei Tola Hadav B'Tfilasai Ela B'Nisa Ve'Vesim Aisila They Midazu Shem Menachem Yosef. So therefore, it's just a cover-up. So in other words, there's nothing to worry about. What's the kasha in Abaya? How could Abaya put him sakana? There's no sakana. It's going to take it away from his chusim. It's not going to take his chusim. Why? Because his tefillah is going to kill it. So what was Abaya? What's the only suffix that maybe him just being there would kill, and that would be a nest because he didn't daven yet. So Rav Acha bar Yaakov now comes out afterwards and says, "How could you put me maybe Misrachim Nisa?" He was covering up the fact that his tefillah could go ahead and do the job, and that you Misrachim Nisa. That's what he's worried about. Okay, we'll stop over here.